Hot cocoa is a wintertime staple, and today there are an abundance of options on store shelves if you're looking for a quick and convenient instant version. But some 70 years ago, one brand would make its debut and become synonymous with instant hot cocoa. This is the story of Swiss Miss.
Swiss Miss's origins date back to the Korean War in the United States, when a Wisconsin dairy farm called Sanna made powdered coffee creamer from dried whole milk for the military. Sanna was so worried about being able to supply the military with enough powdered creamer to meet their contract that they ended up making too much. The Sanna family was left with a warehouse bursting with dried milk. Charles Sanna, son of the founder of Sanna Dairies, recalled, "The dried milk had a wonderful flavor. I believed it would make an excellent ingredient for a hot cup of cocoa."
He developed a powdered hot cocoa product using the dry milk, which his brother Tony Sanna dubbed Brown Swiss, after a specific breed of dairy cows.
As a side note, the name Brown Swiss was something of a misnomer, as the dairy farm used Holstein cows, not Brown Swiss. Sanna Dairy sold the powdered hot cocoa in pre-measured cup-sized packets to Airlines, where it was successful. Maybe a little too successful, in fact. Airline passengers liked it so much, they started taking the packets home with them, much to the dismay of airlines.
Brown Swiss was convenient, but it was also expensive, and so airlines stopped using them. Now, this was a troubling development for Sanna Dairies, who seemed poised to lose the airline industry as a customer. But it was also an opportunity. Airline passengers not only wanted to take the hot cocoa packets home with them, they also wanted to know where they could find them in stores. If Sanna Dairy could somehow bring Brown Swiss to the retail market, it would have a ready group of consumers willing to buy it.
In 1961, Sanna Dairies debuted its powdered hot cocoa drink in stores, but the new drink mix wasn't the same as the Brown Swiss served on planes. For one thing, Charles Sanna had tinkered with the formula, switching to dried skim milk so it'd stay shelf-stable longer. And it had a new name, Swiss Miss Instant Hot Cocoa Mix. Swiss Miss seemed to arrive on store shelves at the perfect time. Instant coffee had taken the beverage industry by storm as consumers delighted in the convenience of making a fresh cup of coffee by just adding hot water. Swiss Miss worked in exactly the same way. The milk was already in the powder, so all you needed was hot water. In fact, early advertisements begged consumers to, please don't add milk. Swiss Miss was also sold in bulk containers or in the individual serving envelopes the airlines had used, with just enough powder to make one cup.
Now, to clarify, Sanna was by no means the first company to bring an instant hot cocoa product to the US market, or even the first that only required water to make. Some of the biggest food companies had beaten them to the punch by a decade or even more. But despite the head start of its competitors, Swiss Miss would become the best-selling hot cocoa mix in the United States by the 1970s.
Swiss Miss and Sanna's dried milk product, Sanilac, also attracted the attention of major food conglomerate Beatrice, who bought Sanna in 1967. As Swiss Miss became a household name, the brand was applied to a whole slew of other milk and chocolate products, including pudding, dried milk, dried buttermilk, popsicles, light hot cocoa, sugar-free hot cocoa, and hot cocoa with marshmallows, all of which were accompanied by the same character, the Swiss Miss. When Sanna prepared to introduce Swiss Miss to stores, it mailed teaser postcards from Switzerland to the homes of buyers and brokers. These postcards read, "I'm on my way to America," and were signed Swiss Miss. Advertising Weekly reported, to help assure domestic tranquility of married buyers, a sample package of the new cocoa followed soon. In Swiss Miss's first few years, a few different mascots appeared. First was a woman wearing a puffed-sleeved blouse, bodice, and skirt with her hair styled in 2 braids and topped with a flower crown. The clothing was meant to resemble the traditional folk garb of Switzerland. About the same time, a more caricature version of the Swiss Miss appeared, who was accompanied by a Swiss lad, or Little Sanny, named after Sanna, of course. In the end, Sanna settled on a version somewhere in between these early mascots.
Swiss Miss's packaging was originally brown, meant to resemble the color of chocolate. And some newspaper ads for the product used a special chocolate-scented ink for added impact.
The brand also incorporated a flower border on product packaging and ads, which was intended to give Swiss Miss a, quote, old world feel. Advertising described Swiss Miss as having delightful old world flavor, or being made for tastes that savor old world flavor. The Swiss Miss mascot's floral motif and references to Old World were all meant to tie the Swiss Miss brand to Switzerland, a country renowned for its chocolate, something which chocolatiers over 4,000 miles away from Sanna's home in Wisconsin were not happy with.
Switzerland has long been known for its cheese, watches, and, of course, chocolates. It's the birthplace of milk chocolate and the creamy, smooth chocolate texture we're familiar with today. Since the early 1900s, chocolate makers in the country have banded together to standardize quality and to protect the interests of Swiss chocolatiers. This industry organization became known as Choco Suisse.
By the 1980s, Choco Suisse represented 18 Swiss chocolate manufacturers, including Lindt and Toblerone. Swiss chocolatiers had long been aware of manufacturers outside of Switzerland making and advertising Swiss chocolate. Imitators became an increasing problem as Swiss exports to the United States grew, and Americans became one of the biggest consumers of Swiss-made chocolate. Dario Kuster, the director of Choco Suisse, told Harry Trimborn of the Los Angeles Times that foreign firms were trying to convince consumers that their product either comes from here or is as good as ours, by using Swiss in their brand names or packaging featuring a Swiss flag. Kuster cited Swiss Miss as an example. For Swiss chocolatiers, Swiss chocolate had a level of quality that was higher than other chocolate makers. This made Swiss chocolate both special and very expensive. If any kind of chocolate could be labeled as Swiss, it could undercut sales for Swiss chocolatiers and hurt the reputation of Swiss chocolate. Dario Kuster noted, "The laws in the United States are very lax compared to those in Europe in dealing with a product's country of origin. In Switzerland, for example, you could never give the name of a French city, like Paris, to a Swiss-produced wine." Choco Suisse argued that the use of Swiss in Swiss Miss and other brands was misleading, and in some parts of the world, this argument was successful. In the UK, for instance, a High Court judge ruled that Cadbury could not use the name Swiss Chalet because it implied that the chocolate it was made from was genuine Swiss chocolate. For Swiss Miss's part, its company noted in 1982 that it had never been contacted by the Swiss government in all the years it had used the Swiss Miss trademark. "We think using Swiss in product names reflects very favorably on the country," a spokesperson told the Los Angeles Times. However, since the late 1990s, the brand has shied away from using elements that overtly emulate Swiss culture, first replacing the Swiss Miss mascot for an alpine background, and then switching to an abstract swirling design that remains in use today. Though the Swiss Miss made a brief return in 2012 when the brand released a limited-time throwback edition.
Today, Swiss Miss continues to be popular. As of 2019, more than 50 million boxes of Swiss Miss were sold every year. And the brand has consistently been listed as one of the best instant hot cocoa mixes. As for Charles Sanna, who had invented Swiss Miss all those years ago, he was still drinking the powdered hot cocoa mix up until the time of his death. He told the Wisconsin State Journal, "It's nice to know you've done something that will carry on." Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look back at the history of Swiss Miss. If you like this video and you would like to hear me talk more about the history of companies and their brands, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to my channel below. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.